A secret report within the Guild. 4 planets have come to our attention regarding a plot which could jeopardize spice production. Planet Arrakis, source of the spice. Planet Caladan, home of House Atreides. Planet EP59, home of House Harkonnen. Planet Kaitain, home of the Emperor of the known universe. Send a 3rd stage Guild navigator to Kaitain to demand details from the Emperor. The spice must flow.
Level up your fun. Your quest is now begun. We'll show you how it's done. True love, true love, true love, true love, true love, true love.
Welcome back to Tabletop Tune-Up. My name is Mark. I'm here with my friend, my host, my co-host, Ben Dyer. How you doing, man?
I'm well. Hey, everybody. Good to be back.
Yeah, the dice must flow, Ben.
A good paraphrase. The dice must flow. Yes,
Yes.
They must.
That was a kind of a neat intro from one of my. Before we get into this, Ben, let's talk about Dune for just a second.
Oh my gosh.
We're fans of Dune. I've read all the books.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched the movies. What are your thoughts on the newer movies? How do you pronounce his name?
Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah. What do you think of these movies?
They're amazing. I mean, visually, great cast, thrilling, just amazing movie class visuals, right? Like sometimes you go to movies and people walk out and they go, that could have been a TV show. Not these, man. These are amazing cinematic experiences.
I have a real odd take in this. I really like the David Lynch movie.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it captures much of the weird vibe of the books. Now, it doesn't capture the story like the new ones do. The story, These ones capture the story. But my God, David Lynch captures the strangeness of those books. And I kind of appreciate them both for different things.
I watched the original David Lynch one for years. Loved it. Yeah. I like the new ones too. Love them. I'm still kind of working my way through the Dune books, and I think it's fascinating. I think, what's funny
is... What book are you on right about now?
I'm on the one that they're making the next movie out of. Honestly, okay. I picked it up and then put it down.
You haven't got to the weird stuff yet.
No.
No, it's great. I'm so excited to see where to go with this because Anyway, today, guys, we're going to be talking about planets and science fiction planet building. We've talked about like fantasy games and we've built magic items, but we feel like we've kind of neglected sci-fi, haven't we, Ben?
I think we got some work to do here. And the thing is, this isn't going to just be hard science fiction, all that kind of stuff. I mean, fantasy has its own version of science fiction too. You can find
sure do. Yeah.
Science fantasy. We'll talk more about that, but there's a lot of room here for planet crafting as a topic.
So let's kind of jump into this because we're going to be talking about we're going to be going to a planet and we want to talk about what makes these planets like interesting, good. If we're designing the planet, what do we want? How do we want it to serve our story? So let's get into it. Ben, why don't you start us off a little bit because I'm going to just be out there, folks. Ben's going to drive this episode because I'm not the big I love science fiction, but I'm also I don't like running these types of games. But Ben does, and I like playing in them.
That's good.
Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are when you start thinking about planets.
Yeah. So here's the thing about planets. Planets are kind of like the unit of storytelling in a science fiction game, right? Think about, for example, like Star Trek. Every week, come to a new planet, have a new adventure. Every planet you visit, it's a chance to kind of reset the circumstances of the game, of the context that you're in, new world, new cultures, new problems, right? All kinds of things can change every time you enter a new solar system and you investigate the planets that are there. You kind of break it down by what kind of game you're in, right? That tells you a bit about how you're going to use these planets. So that's kind of what I got prepared for today in terms of our notes is let's kind of think about planets in 3 different categories. Number 1, hard science fiction. Here you could think about like The Expanse, or you could think
Yeah.
about like Traveler.
And one thing I'll say real quick about that hard sci-fi too, you're going to find that these planets might be like further out in systems because we all know that the universe is kind of expansive, or the expanse, so these planets that would actually be habitable would probably be pretty far out there in distance. And that's, you're going to see a lot of that in hard science fiction is the way to get to these planets is part of that story.
Yeah. So hard science fiction, soft science fiction, right? That would be the opposite of hard science fiction. If hard science fiction really focuses on the science and the kind of the grounded reality, soft science fiction says, let's not pay as much attention to that, because what we're interested in is the interesting social, political, dramatic elements, right? And so these are the kind of episodes you'd see in Star Trek where they go visit some culture that maybe, they've got to think about the Prime Directive and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they always come up with these kind of wacky ideas, particularly old Star Trek. They would land on planets. They're like, oh, they're all kids here,
Yeah. Or there's a civilization here that's governed by a computer. Do we break the computer so they can set their own destiny? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, yeah.
The third category would be like fantasy, though, right? So think here about like Spelljammer and maybe some of the like the pulp retro sci-fi, like John Carter kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, and we kind of treat a lot. I have always kind of treated my planes of existence almost like planets. They're places you go to visit. These are interesting places. Yeah.
So like in the D&D multiverse, right? Like I think there's kind of it's almost like a sort of a local science fiction-y solar system of different planes that you could literally kind of travel to, but you're traveling through like the astral sea and you're moving through limbo or something like that, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm in Ravenloft,
Right.
Well, we're not going to talk about D&D now. We're going to talk about science fiction. So you were just mentioning something about what you were just saying, though, how these are places you can go to kind of like reset, so to speak. Don't all planets kind of do that in a certain sense? It's not just soft sci-fi or anything.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that's true of all these different planets. So, in a certain sense, we're familiar with this when we do kind of globe-trotting adventures in normal fantasy games, right? You go to a different continent, you go to a different, part of the map, you're going to find different kinds of, environments and biomes. You're going to find different kinds of monsters. You're going to find different kinds of like tribes and peoples and stuff like that. And the science fiction version of that is when you go to different planets. So any of those science fiction types we talked about, this would be relevant.
So what kind of games? Obviously, we've played Traveler. We've discussed that in one of our past episodes. Please, folks, go back and look at our review of Traveler. Enjoy it. What other games kind of use planets a lot?
There are adapted versions of Star Trek and Star Wars. Traveler, of course, as we've said. For those that like generic systems, Hero System and GURPS both have a whole host of science fiction supplements that will let you do that. And actually, one of the things I was going to mention is I think there's a lot of really great stuff to mine out of these game books. Even if you're not playing, let's say, GURPS or Hero, you might find in those books a really useful random table to roll up that will help you build a planet if you want,
Yeah, and GURPS was not a game I played a whole lot of, but I tell you what, back in the day, I had a pretty good collection of GURPS books because they had such good, like, random tables and rules for GMs. It was a good place to mine, and you could also pick them up real cheap at the used bookstore. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, no, this is worth taking a moment to shout out the Steve Jackson Games guys, right? Like GURPS is a system that I think had some of the best research and some of the best supplements of any game I've ever seen.
Yeah, they had this column. I always remember they had kind of these like thin columns on the sides of the books that would have little breakdowns that the GM could they would speak to you as a GM and they'd write stuff in there, and I was like, that stuff was so valuable to me as a new GM. All the little tips that Steve Jackson and his publisher, his people would write in there. God, it was so good, and I wish more games did that. But I'm sidetracking.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea here, right, is that there's a lot of really great science fiction content out there. And frankly, sometimes it's not even game books. You can actually go
Yeah,
find stuffs on astrophysics for kids. I mean, there's all that kind of NASA educational material. And heck, after you read a couple like Arthur C. Clarke books, you're probably going to start feeling pretty confident about how to
yeah.
tell that story.
Let's jump into that. The first of the three that you mentioned. You said hard
Yeah.
sci-fi, and you were talking about that a little bit. Let's get a little deeper. What are some of the kind of interesting places and things that you would imagine hard sci-fi?
Yeah, so in hard science fiction, remember the idea here is this is about real science and things that are very grounded in the realistic kinds of experiences. So the thing you want to do with planets in this context is you want to actually try to draw from real things to generate the hazards and the phenomena and the interesting things about whatever that planet is. Maybe you've got a planet that has multiple moons, and so there's weird gravity effects, or maybe you've got a planet that always rotates at the same rate as it revolves around its star, so that there's always one side facing the sun. These are things that happen in reality. These are things you can imagine happening. And so when you do that, of course, it creates these amazing sort of opportunities for you as a storyteller. Do you remember the Vin Diesel Riddick
Oh,
movies?
don't even talk to me about crematoria. Don't even get. I'll tell you what. Let's save that one for our last section, which is the fantasy section, because
Okay.
that planet was ridiculous. And I remember watching it, thinking, "God, it looked really cool on screen, but this planet would never work,
I
ever."
see.
And we'll come back to that one.
We'll come back. Okay. So the
Yeah,
key idea is there's all kinds of interesting things you can do. Take a little time to study what happens if a planet's a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, what that does to gravity. There's all kinds of references out there for what would happen if you actually lived on a high gravity or low gravity world. What does that do to physiology? How does that make things work? So fascinating stuff you can do. And hard science fiction players will love
yeah,
that stuff. They'll eat it up.
yeah, and they really do. I mean, but you have. I mean, this is probably why I don't like running science fiction games, is because I don't have that kind of knowledge, and that's part of why I don't enjoy it as much. So I will run more of like the soft
Yeah.
sci-fi, which we'll get into in just a bit. But give me give me an example of a setting that you feel does hard sci-fi really well.
The Expanse, I think, is these days like the gold standard for hard sci-fi.
But Interstellar had some interesting things where they did with
Interstellar.
planets.
Oh yeah, the Nolan movie.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think that was amazing.
One thing they talked about is that they on these shows they really kind of explore like what this would do to you if you were on this kind of planet, and you would
Yeah.
see people wearing suits because the environment's just not safe. It's not, even if there's oxygen, it's still not safe. There's things out there.
Well, and you were talking about Interstellar. Like one of the amazing things about that is just this idea of them placing a planet near the gravity well of a black hole,
Hmm.
so that then there's time dilation if you go down to the planet and you come back and there's years that have passed. That is a premier hard science fiction challenge, problem, concern. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would break my brain as a GM, but it's awesome. I'd love it as
Yeah.
a player. I'd be just like, oh my god, this is amazing,
Yeah.
best game ever. So in that regard, when you think about those hard sci-fi, you're thinking about those environmental hazards. The phenomenon that would be caused that you were just mentioning in
Yeah.
Interstellar, how the black hole is interacting. That's where that hard science fiction comes in. You have to know your stuff.
I think that's true, but I also think you don't have to know everything, right? Like if you know just enough to kind of
So you're
get
saying
you in trouble,
you're saying you could fake it till you make it on this?
I'm thinking there's hope for you, Mark. That's what I'm saying.
I like it. What,
Hey, one other thing before we leave the hard sci-fi thing, let's actually talk about the aliens on a hard science
Yeah,
fiction
I was just going to
planet.
mention. I want to get into the aliens. So what would that look like?
So I think the thing about aliens in a hard science fiction setting is that people, I think, don't really believe that in some alien planet you're going to find humans with prosthetic noses. You know what I mean? Like with Star Trek style forehead appliances and stuff like that. As satisfying as that is, as great as it helps you out with all kinds of different storytelling things, you do that, you're kind of in soft sci-fi land generally. So, when you go to an alien world in a hard sci-fi setting, you're probably going to find very divergent
Like the Arrival
alien life.
kind of life,
Yeah,
maybe, where they're
right.
just not able to communicate any sort of way that you would normally communicate with.
Yeah. And a lot of the problems you're going to have sort of interacting with them are going to be things like you might have seen in that movie, right? Like they don't have the same kind of body that you do. They don't have the same way of thinking about language that you do. And so, again, hard science fiction players are going to eat up this idea of a challenge that's really grounded in reality. But, again, this is very dependent. The success of that game is very dependent on those kind of players. So,
yeah, folks, sorry we're talking about movies that you maybe haven't seen, but that's your fault for not seeing them.
Go see The Arrival. Go see Interstellar. Great movies. Great movies.
And for God's sake, watch The Expanse.
Yeah.
So let's kind of make our way into soft sci-fi, which I think is what most people kind of play, I would say, in an RPG type setting. This would include like Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking
Star Wars, Star Trek. Science is still present, right?
Yep.
Like you're still going to asphyxiate if you go out into hard vacuum in Star Trek, but they're not really trying to tell a whole lot of stories with that. I mean, it's not irrelevant, right? But
so one thing I noticed with, well, I would say maybe this is more of a Star Wars problem, but I see this a lot in soft science fiction, is the one climate planet thing.
Oh, I was hoping we'd get to this. Yeah.
You got Hoth, you got Tatooine, Coruscant, Mustafar, all these planets in Star Wars. They're all just like, they're one-trick ponies.
Yeah.
You got your volcano planet, you got your sand planet.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say about that, though, right? Is that in science fiction, that can make sense because you think about what they call I think they call it the Goldilocks zone. It's basically that kind of range within which we think that life as we understand it could start, right? It's this kind of how far away from the sun are you, right? And if you're a certain amount of time away, then parts of the planet are going to be, it's going to be like us, right? Parts of the planet will be frozen, parts of it will be liquid water, maybe parts of it can have plants and things like that. Mm-hmm. But like a little bit closer, and it is going to be desert all the time. It's going to be like Venus. It's going to be like Mercury. It's going to be like one of these places where nothing lives and it's just stone or deserts.
It still doesn't make sense. Like, I mean, there might be some, mind you, might be some Star Wars fan who's going to call up and, Mark, you're wrong. Tatooine does have plants, but there's just not enough to sustain life. Where'd they get their oxygen from? Come on, people.
Oh, I see. Well, yeah. So I think there's something right about that. Is it think about it this way: is what kind of story do I want to tell? In the soft sci-fi thing, it's really the narrative leading the science, and so you want to think about like, well, what's the idea on this planet? Like, what's the story I want to tell here? You could have a planet that did have all one biome, and that's fine. But then the question becomes: what kind of story are you going to tell there? Is it about scarce resources on this planet and people in the concentrated urban centers on the planet are kind of living well, but then people in the outlands are kind of getting set to rebel against them and stuff? Is it like Dune, where we've got a resource on this planet and it's being extracted, and the people on the planet that are sort of native to the planet are getting ready to overthrow them? Like, there's so many things you can do.
And the planet is really playing a role in that kind of story, because if you think about like how Star Wars kind of starts out with Luke's story, he's on Tatooine. It's obviously this desolate kind of ass end of space, so to speak. And there's that shot of him, and there's that vast loneliness and emptiness of the desert, and he just feels like he's destined to greatness. But you look around, you can't reach your destiny there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Think about how different that would have been if he was on Alderaan, as we've been later introduced to it. He's in a lush, life-giving planet with lots of wonderful waterfalls and forests and natural resources, and he's surrounded by a loving family in a suburban tract development or something like that, right?
I mean, yeah, it just makes a lot more sense. He like basically grew up in Spokane, Washington. I mean, he's like looking out.
Oh goodness!
Oh, God.
Well, friends, we've outed ourselves. This is, by the way, I met Mark. I grew up in Spokane, and I met Mark there. So, our memories of that city are
it's Tatooine, guys.
Decidedly mixed.
But you know what? That it really does. It's part of that story. Is
Yeah.
basically what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. I think in a sci-fi setting that's kind of more of a soft sci-fi setting, if you think about aliens there,
Mhm.
it actually does make a lot more sense to make them a little more human because the stories you want to tell are really kind of human style narratives, right? And the whole
Yeah,
planet is a stage for that. So having them be a little bit different, but not a lot different actually helps you. And it lets you put the stuff in the foreground that you're trying to put in the foreground.
and and what was that last category you had? Fantasy, right?
Yeah, science fantasy. I think of this as kind of like the Spelljammer, pulp sci-fi. It's stuff that really has
It can be
really
out
no
there.
grounding in science, right?
Yeah, we're talking about like Ego, the living planet. Um, and here's where we're going to put in. Bringing it back. Crematoria
Oh yeah.
from the
Okay.
Riddick movie.
Yeah.
Which Ben, tell us what this planet is, and because it was so awesome on screen, but it was so just like there's no way they could breathe this air.
Oh, so I haven't seen the movie for years, so you're gonna have to keep me honest here. But this is a planet where the I think it rotates on a certain, but slowly, and then the sun kind of cooks it too much.
Yeah, it was like super cold on one side that was the
Right.
sun was not facing. Like it got like ridiculously cold. And then on the other side where the sun was facing, it was just everything was burning. And it literally just rotated around and burned in a circle. And of
Oh,
course,
right.
he had to
He had to race
race
against
against
the
the
oncoming
yes.
sun horizon.
And you're the whole time I'm watching this going, there's where would there ever be oxygen on this planet? Like
He'd get
there's
all burned off,
it would all have been burned off long ago. It was just the silliest concept, but good on screen now.
but it made a good movie.
It
I
did.
mean, good
Well,
movie. It made a movie.
it made a movie.
It was not too bad. Boy, we're spicy today.
But folks, what we're saying with this is that it it was a really cool set piece for what the storyteller wanted to do, and he wanted to have this action scene where he was racing across against the sun with fire and frost and and you know what? That would have made a great action sequence in the game. You cannot
Yeah.
tell me that wouldn't be fun.
Yeah, yeah. Look, science fantasy is not at all concerned with science. Science fantasy is entirely concerned with spectacle, story, drama,
Yeah,
and all it's doing is it's exchanging the technology and the kind of realistic grounding for magic, blasters for swords, and I think in most other respects, the kind of stories you're going to tell are like the kind of ones you're going to use in the soft sci-fi setting,
yeah,
but you're going to basically go all the way to the spectacle, magical, sword wielding end
yeah.
of the spectrum.
And this is where you're going to get into stuff like Eo, the Living Planet. He was in the Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah, well, and in Marvel Comics too as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. But I mean, these are where you're going to get into some really wacky ideas. But I got to tell you, these are fun places to be in an RPG table for people who like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Some of these other places like planets in science fiction. Ben, what are some of the ones you like that you've seen over the years?
Oh, favorite planets in science fiction. What a
I mean, it
great question.
doesn't have to be just planets, but it could be like movies that kind of had that experience with a relationship with a planet.
Mm. So apparently the Chinese version of this is different, and some people think it's better, and that's fine. But Netflix actually not long ago did a 3 body problem show that
Okay.
I thought was really interesting. Have you happened to have seen this?
No, I've not. I've never watched it.
I would say check it out. It is going to draw you in, and it's got some big
I
ideas.
mean, I'm okay with a 1 body problem, maybe a 2, but like 3, I'm out.
Well, it's actually apparently I didn't know this before seeing this thing, but apparently it's a real challenge, and you can't really calculate how 3 body physics things are going to work if you have 3 like stars in a solar system or whatever,
Okay.
like stuff like that, or 2 stars in a planet or whatever. It's going to be unpredictable in some way. That does play into the story, by the way. So check it out. But I think it's a real interesting story that is built out of that problem. So I think that's kind of a really fun, hard sci-fi kind of take. Also, I mean, let's be clear, the OG hard sci-fi planet experience is Europa from the 2001 and
Yeah,
2010 movies.
very good. I
This
mean,
is
even a more modern one that is really planet centric is the Avatar series.
Yeah.
Like you gotta kind of think of that as like, I felt like James Cameron just built a planet and he just wanted to show it off, and
Yeah.
he wrote a movie around it. So
Yeah. Well, and they do a really good job in that movie, I think, too, in the Avatar movies, of really making you feel the alienness of that world and the sort of all the different kinds of life that's there.
yeah, he
They're
makes a
definitely not
real,
humans with weird noses.
yeah, and while he may not go into a lot of details of how that stuff works, you do get a sense that there's thought behind it. There's a cohesiveness to the alienness of it, and so you get the feeling that whether or not you are told how it works, you get the
It
feeling that
feels like it
somebody's thought
should.
about it.
Yeah. I will say that's interestingly, though, that's a story that looks like hard science fiction because the way they treat the technology, which has always
It's
been
definitely not.
one of James Cameron's things. But yeah, like it's definitely kind of like kind of an eco tale. It's got a little,
Yeah,
kind of indigenous
yeah,
people narrative and stuff
definitely
like that.
soft science fiction.
Yeah.
At times, might even get into the little more ridiculous aspect. But again, a very in-depth idea about world building. But I
Yeah.
also think Guardians of the Galaxy is
Oh
another.
yeah.
They have a lot of really, like, there's no place they land that didn't look interesting.
Yeah. Well, the idea of taking like a celestial's head and having it be kind of carved out, that place
Yeah,
they call nowhere in the movies,
yeah,
and having that be a place you could land. Hey guys, don't forget, it doesn't have to be planets. It could be an asteroid moving through space. It could be
yeah.
a rogue planet that is no longer in the solar system that it started in.
Wait
It
a
could
second.
be,
That's not a moon.
yeah, it could be a big space station. It could be like that towering epic of, I think, 1997 Armageddon by Michael Bay.
Oh,
You could send some
epic.
drill guys up to put a bomb
Oh,
inside a comet until it
epic, huh?
blows up. Oh my gosh. I still weep when I see that movie.
I weep that it was ever made. All right.
Okay.
So listen, what kind of things that when we're designing a planet, we're trying to think about what we're gonna send our hapless players to. What do you try to avoid, Ben?
Yeah, two quick things. Number one, don't try to become an astrophysicist, a planetologist, a geologist, a meteorologist, a chemist, like all the other kinds of things. Not necessary.
You
Just
don't have to be Neil deGrasse Tyson.
no, happily not. All you have to do, I don't even think Neil deGrasse Tyson would have all the different like disciplines you would need to fully
Yeah,
describe this thing. You can really go down the rabbit hole.
he would be the worst GM anyway. But
Let's stay open minded. If he calls and he wants to GM a game, I'll play it. Let's find out.
okay, Neil deGrasse
Um,
Tyson, if you're out there listening,
yeah,
never mind. He's not.
he's not listening. But you know what? Our invitation's open. Hey, so yeah, don't try to like do all of the stuff. You could get mired in all that, and it could keep you from getting to the story you want to tell. Find one or two things that will sell the reality of that for the kind of game you're playing. If it's a hard sci-fi thing, find something sciencey. If it's a soft sci-fi thing or a science fantasy thing, find the nature of the cultures and the life on that planet that you want to interact with and do something interesting with. Second point, don't overwhelm your players with your homework. Let's say you do go down that rabbit hole, or even part of the way down that rabbit hole. You are going to feel like you want to tell them everything about how much gravity this world has, whether it's got a spaceport, what the different political blah, blah,
God,
blah, 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 blah,
I'm
blah.
bored already
And
with
all
that.
of the players are going to just disengage. You're going to see all the phones come out as they sort of look to see if something else is going on
It's
tonight
too
they can
much, you
escape
guys.
to. Yeah.
As a player, like particularly in a science fiction game, you're usually having a lot of new ideas thrown at you. You got your books, you got your tech, and you have to like all this stuff you got to keep track of. Now you got your GMs giving you a 5-page document on this stupid planet.
Let me caveat that though. One thing you can do is if you do have a lot of that really cool background information, two things. One, see how it could fit into your story or develop your story, because that's what makes it useful. And then, yeah, that's the other thing. Like, let it be skill rolls or let it be things they discover. Let it be stuff that gets revealed over time. And then that'll create depth.
We don't need to know the whole, we just need to know what it's like where you land. And then you start exploring outwards as you grow into this planet. And then at moments, the GM can start dropping bigger bits as you are digesting.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that one.
I know we're getting short on time. I'm just going to add like one other quick little complaint. And
Sure.
this is about Star Trek. And this kind of relates to this, right?
Careful, Ben. Very careful. We don't want to alienate our Star Trek base.
Well, that's true. One of the things I didn't really like so much about later Star Trek, sort of next gen forward kind of thing, was like they could do all the work they needed to do to learn about that planet from orbit. They'd be like, I'm scanning the planet down to like 3 millimeters. Oh, looks like there's a microbe there. Like, you shouldn't be able to know that kind of stuff from orbit, right? I kind of love the original series for that. If you want to know about a planet, you got to go take a shuttlecraft or beam down there or whatever and like go check it out yourself.
Yeah, that's true. We found that out with Traveler. It's more fun when you're actually on the ship. Well, let's get into our tune-up segment.
All right, Mark, this week I'm turning the tables on you. It's your turn to answer. And I think this is a little bit connected to some of our previous discussion here. We have a tune-up question from one of our listeners. How do you create on your geographies, your maps, or your descriptions of the world? How do you create the kind of larger than life geographical anomalies, things that probably shouldn't exist in the real world, things that draw attention and create mystery and invite players to think about the lore that might have occurred in that place?
Let's bring it to our science fiction world building, since we can kind of like segue that back into our topic here.
Cool.
I want to give you an example of something I was really intrigued by. Everybody who saw this movie was intrigued by. You land on LV-426.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And you see that giant, mysterious ship that's crashed there. Who knows how long? You don't know. Been there for a long time. It looks like it's part of the environment almost.
Yeah.
And so that right there is, I'm not going to say that's a geographical anomaly, but it is an anomaly. And in any game, it doesn't have to be geographical. It could be.
I was going to say it's located there, so as long as it's got a place.
Yeah. And that mystery drove those players, or the characters in the movie, to go explore that ship, and it became, of course, the movie Alien, which we all love, and created a franchise. If that was a game at the table, that game would still be played to this day.
Well, they do have an Alien RPG. I haven't tried it, but I hear it's good.
But that, folks, is a geographical anomaly in a sci-fi game. But it could be in a fantasy game. It could be something somebody built from some civilization a long time ago that maybe hasn't been discovered in a long time.
Cataclysms, actually. You have an example of this in the game we're currently playing, where we have like a glass desert of some kind. Can you talk about the Glass Reach?
Yeah, we just kind of keep up with this idea of this desert where there's wild pockets of magic that create this almost like glass out of the desert, and the glass can absorb different types of magics. They're dangerous to go through. We haven't really explored it too much in the game. We've kind of talked about it, but here's the thing, folks. You build up mystery, you build up lore about these places, and that's what's gonna make them interesting. And as a person who's designing this stuff, if it makes you question it, if it makes you curious, you're on the right path.
Yeah.
You can sometimes just leave it really like, I don't know what it is, but it's got me intrigued.
One of the things that makes this really fun is if you're using like map software or you're using other things where maybe they have like a catalog of different symbols you can drop onto the map. And so you're like, I'm going to put a whirlpool there. What's that all about? Why is there a whirlpool there? I don't know, but that's something you can drop in there and answer that question later with something really interesting.
Yeah. So interesting thing about that is that, you could drop that on there and players will be intrigued by it. And if, obviously you put it on there because it was intriguing to you, you really get a sense of what the players are actually interested in when they start looking at these maps and go, okay, I want to go check that place out. That looks interesting. And you've kind of done a little bit of the work of like, part of the job as a GM is to get people interested in your places, your events, and sometimes just dropping little bits about, like, say, the Glass Reach and describe just a little bit of it makes them intrigued. So
yeah,
LV426 is kind of a good example of that. Like, I probably would have checked that if I was on that planet. I probably would have gone to check it out too, and I probably would have died.
Yeah. Find the thing that looks different from everything else, or make something that looks like it shouldn't belong there. And I think people are going to start asking questions.
All right. Thanks, guys. We will return. We don't have our topic for our next tabletop tune-up, but we'll figure it out by next game or next session.
I think we have a few good candidates here, so we'll make some choices, and yeah, we'll see you in a few weeks. Hey, remember, you can always reach out to us at tabletoptuneup@gmail.com. Give us your ideas, thoughts. You can also drop a comment on YouTube.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll read those. We'll check them out. We'll bring you into the conversation, and that conversation will resume in a couple weeks. But until then, keep those dice rolling.
Level up your fun. Your quest has now begun. We'll show you how it's done. Tune up, tune up, tune up, tune up, tune up, tune up. Level up your fun. Your quest has now begun. We'll show you how